The war that had raged for decades between Earth and the Galactic Empire was over. The Empire, with its endless fleets of ships and superior technology, had overwhelmed Earth's defenses. Humanity had fought fiercely, but the Empire's power proved too great. Once proud cities now lay in ruins, their towering skyscrapers reduced to rubble, their people scattered across the stars or buried beneath the wreckage. The mighty human fleets, which had once fought valiantly in the defense of their homeworld, were no more. They had been either destroyed or taken captive by the Empire's forces. The survivors had been forced into hiding, slipping into the shadows of the galaxy, where they had little hope of ever rising again. For the Empire, this was a moment of triumph. The Emperor sat in his grand palace, gazing upon the shattered remnants of Earth, knowing that the final battle had been won. His voice echoed across the Empire as he issued a decree: the total eradication of humanity. No longer would Earth be a threat. The few surviving humans scattered throughout the galaxy would be hunted down and exterminated. It was supposed to be the end of the story. Humanity had been crushed, its last hope extinguished, and the Empire's rule over the galaxy seemed secure. But something lingered. A sense of unease, a whisper in the wind. Some high-ranking officials, even those within the Empire's own ranks, couldn't shake the feeling that there were things they hadn't accounted for, things they hadn't destroyed. There had been reports, small whispers of strange happenings, unknown ships appearing in the deep reaches of space, odd signals that seemed to originate from parts of the galaxy where no human should be. The Empire's spies could not trace them, and the data was inconclusive. It didn't make sense. No one had ever thought to prepare for the possibility that the human spirit, broken, scattered, and seemingly lost, might still have something left to fight with. The thought was dismissed as mere superstition, a fear among the Empire's leaders that things had not gone as cleanly as they had hoped. Still, as the days passed, the nagging feeling didn't go away. The Emperor himself, a ruler who prided himself on his meticulous control over his domain, started to sense a strange disturbance in the galaxy, an anomaly that could not be explained by his vast intelligence network. Ships began to disappear from the Empire's outposts, and military installations that were meant to be secure were found abandoned, with no trace of the crews who had once occupied them. It was as though something, or someone, was quietly slipping through their grasp. The Empire had underestimated the sheer unpredictability of humans. They had dismissed Earth's last stand as a dying gasp, a desperate effort by a broken people. But deep down, a part of them couldn't shake the fear that maybe, just maybe, they had made a mistake. And that mistake was about to cost them everything. There was no visible sign of organized resistance, no grand army rising to challenge the Empire. Yet something was happening, something subtle, something that would soon shake the Empire to its very core. The survivors, scattered like dust in the wind, were not as broken as they had appeared. They had learned, adapted, and bided their time. Earth's last hope had not been extinguished. It had simply been hidden, waiting. The Emperor may have thought it was over, but in the dark corners of the galaxy, a new force was quietly preparing to rise. And it was only a matter of time before the Empire realized that they had underestimated humanity's greatest strength: the will to survive. The war might have been over, but the battle for the future of the galaxy was only just beginning. In the deepest, most forgotten regions of space, far from the Empire's ever-watchful gaze, a small group of human survivors was quietly biding their time. These were not the weak remnants of a defeated species. They were the last spark of humanity's defiance, gathered in secret under the leadership of one man, Admiral Elias Kane. A name once whispered with respect, then lost to the annals of history. Kane had vanished during the final battle, presumed dead by the Empire. But he had not died. Instead, he had taken a handful of Earth's bravest soldiers and engineers into the uncharted darkness, where they began the quiet work of survival. They had rebuilt their strength in the shadows, far from the Empire's prying eyes, using the scraps of Earth's technology that had been left behind or forgotten by the invaders. The survivors had not just been hiding, they were evolving, adapting, and preparing for the day they would strike back. Over the years, they had scavenged wrecked ships, reactivated dormant facilities, and slowly brought Earth's greatest minds together once more. In secret shipyards, hidden in the barren stretches of unexplored space, the second wave of humanity had slowly taken shape. But it wasn't just the physical rebuilding that was so crucial. The survivors had delved into old, ancient Earth texts and blueprints, resurrecting technologies that had long been abandoned or forgotten. The humans had begun to weave the fabric of their future with knowledge of energy shields, cloaking devices, and stealth weapons, technologies the Empire had never imagined a broken, defeated race could possess. They had developed weapons capable of disrupting the Empire's advanced shields, stealth systems that could allow their ships to slip past even the most sophisticated detection networks. What had once been humanity's downfall, its vulnerability in space, had now become its greatest weapon. The Empire's technology, vast and seemingly unbeatable, was no longer as far ahead as they believed. Still, the real strength of the second wave wasn't in their weapons, their ships, or even the advanced strategies they'd developed. It was something much more powerful, the human spirit. Despite their hardships, despite their losses, the survivors of Earth had never surrendered. Every failure, every loss, had only strengthened their resolve. The humans who had once been scattered and broken were now united in purpose, driven by a shared need to survive and reclaim their home. The Empire may have crushed their cities and their fleets, but they had not crushed their will. And it was this spirit, this refusal to be broken, that the Empire had never anticipated. No matter how powerful their technology was, no matter how many battles they won, the Empire had underestimated the heart of humanity. Kane, once a respected admiral and now a quiet leader of this growing resistance, stood in the command center of their hidden base, his gaze fixed on the holographic map of the galaxy. The Empire was blind to what was coming. Their intelligence systems were still focused on the remnants of humanity, unaware that a new force had emerged from the shadows. The second wave was ready. Small, yes, but determined, and far more dangerous than the Empire could imagine. With each passing day, their fleet grew stronger. Each new ship was an answer to a problem the Empire had never thought to solve. And, yet despite all their progress, the second wave knew their battle would not be easy. The Empire's reach was vast, their power seemingly unchallenged. But Kane had always believed that the greatest weapon any civilization could possess was not in its machines, but in its ability to adapt and fight for what it believed in. As the second wave's fleet moved silently through the farthest corners of space, avoiding detection by the Empire's countless patrols, they could feel the pressure mounting. Time was running out. They knew the Empire would soon turn its gaze back to Earth, believing that the final eradication of humanity was just a matter of time. But Kane and his people knew something the Empire did not. They had been underestimated. And as long as humanity's will to survive burned bright, no empire, no matter how powerful, could ever truly destroy them. The second wave was ready, and with every passing moment, the Empire's victory over Earth seemed less and less certain. The spark of rebellion had been lit, and the galaxy would soon learn that humanity was not as defeated as they had believed. It was only just beginning. The Empire, confident in its victory, believed that humanity had been completely eradicated. Their forces, now spread thin across the galaxy, felt little threat as they maintained a tight grip on their conquests. The Emperor's decree to wipe out the last remnants of humankind seemed like a mere formality, a final step in securing the Empire's rule. But they had underestimated the resilience of Earth's survivors. Quietly, In the depths of space, the second wave was preparing for their moment. The fleet, built in secrecy and growing stronger by the day, was now in full force. The time for hiding was over. In the vast emptiness of the galaxy, the second wave began to strike. They didn't launch a full-scale assault. Such an act would have been reckless, drawing the Empire's full attention. Instead, they executed a series of calculated, daring raids against key Empire-controlled planets and outposts. These operations were led by Earth's finest minds, brilliant engineers, cunning tacticians, and former soldiers who had seen the worst the galaxy had to offer. They knew the Empire's weaknesses, and they were prepared to exploit them. Armed with a mix of Earth's remaining technology and the alien advancements they had scavenged, the humans launched their attacks with precision, disappearing into the darkness after each successful strike. Every operation was a statement, small victories that were far more significant than the Empire realized. A communications relay station here, a research facility there, seemingly insignificant targets, but the consequences were anything but small. The Empire, stretched thin and overconfident, began to notice strange anomalies. Ships went missing, outposts were destroyed, and communications went dark at the most unexpected times. The Empire had become complacent, unable to grasp that humanity, a species they believed defeated, was still very much alive, and now fighting back. The first of these raids sent a ripple of fear through the Empire, a wave of uncertainty that grew with each success. As the second wave's attacks continued, the Empire's forces were thrown into disarray. They had never expected such cunning from a people they thought they had crushed. Earth's survivors weren't just fighting for their lives anymore. They were fighting for something much deeper: revenge. Every raid was a strike at the heart of the Empire's pride, a blow at the very foundation of their perceived victory. What the Empire failed to see with their cold and calculated view of the galaxy was that humanity's drive for vengeance was boundless. The raids were not just acts of desperation, they were acts of justice, of reclaiming what had been lost. Humans were using the Empire's own arrogance against them. Their ships, designed with cloaking technology and stealth capabilities, slipped past Empire defenses undetected. By the time the Empire realized what was happening, it was too late. A small fleet of human ships, operating in the shadows, could cause unimaginable chaos. They would strike hard and fast, then vanish before the Empire could retaliate. Each raid grew bolder, more daring, as the second wave tested the limits of their newfound strength. Word of their success spread, though slowly. Too slowly for the Empire to catch on in time. Back in the dark corners of space, Admiral Kane watched as his fleet delivered another blow to the Empire. This victory, like all the others, was hard-earned, but it sent a clear message. Humanity was not broken. The attacks were taking a toll, not only on the Empire's resources but on its morale. Soldiers and officers, once confident in their superiority, were starting to doubt. Whispers began to spread throughout the Empire's ranks. Was there a threat they hadn't destroyed? Was there something more to humanity than they had realized? Slowly, doubt crept into the Empire's command structure, and the Empire's once unshakable confidence began to crack. But the second wave knew that their fight was just beginning. These small victories were important, yes, but they were only a means to an end. Humanity wasn't simply fighting for survival, they were fighting to take back what was theirs. Every strike against the Empire's control was a step closer to that goal. The second wave had learned from the mistakes of the past. They wouldn't just fight to stay alive. They would fight to win. The Empire's victory had been short-lived, and every raid, every success, brought the humans closer to their ultimate goal: to rise again and reclaim their place in the galaxy. And as the second wave continued to hit the Empire where it hurt, the Emperor and his generals began to realize that humanity had not been defeated. Far from it. They were coming back, and this time, they would not be stopped. The Emperor's patience had finally run out. After months of mysterious raids and mounting threats from the last remnants of humanity, a sense of panic began to seep into the Empire's ranks. Whispers of human insurgents, of attacks that struck at the heart of the Empire's power, reached the Emperor's ears. At first, he dismissed it as mere rebellion, nothing that could truly challenge his reign. But as his intelligence network confirmed the scale and precision of these raids, fear turned to rage. The Emperor, infuriated by what he saw as an insult to his authority, issued a command that sent shockwaves through his empire. An all-out offensive to eradicate humanity once and for all. His fleet, the largest and most powerful in the galaxy, was mobilized for a final campaign to wipe out Earth's last hope. The Empire's forces would sweep across the galaxy, targeting human strongholds and eliminating any remaining resistance. What the Emperor failed to grasp, however, was that humanity's strength didn't lie in the size of their fleet or the raw power of their ships. It was in their resilience, their ability to adapt, and their refusal to give up. While the Empire prepared for an overwhelming show of force, the humans had been doing something far more dangerous. Watching. They had been studying the Empire's movements, learning their tactics, and waiting for the right moment to strike. Every attack made by the second wave had been calculated and precise, but it wasn't just about small victories anymore. Humanity had been building, planning, and adapting to the Empire's strengths and weaknesses. They had learned from each battle and found ways to turn the Empire's overwhelming power against itself. The Emperor's fleets, confident in their superiority, began their offensive with the intent to crush humanity once and for all. Their ships were enormous, brimming with firepower, and they were commanded by the Empire's finest generals. The humans, on the other hand, operated in the shadows, using tactics that the Empire could not have predicted. They didn't fight with sheer numbers or brute force. They fought with cunning, speed, and the element of surprise. Where the Empire came in with forceful strikes, the humans hit and ran, disappearing before the Empire could retaliate. They used guerrilla tactics, ambushing outposts, sabotaging supply lines, and causing havoc wherever they went. And all the while, they were pulling the Empire's forces into a trap. The Empire's forces grew overconfident, their commanders assuming that it was only a matter of time before the last of humanity was eradicated. But the humans had one more surprise in store. The Empire had gathered its fleet for a decisive battle at one of their most critical space stations, an installation that served as a hub for the Empire's communications and logistics. It was here that the final confrontation was set to take place. The humans, knowing the importance of this location, had spent weeks preparing. Under the leadership of Admiral Kane, they had set the stage for their most daring plan yet. Using a combination of cloaked ships, stolen Imperial technology, and guerrilla tactics, they lured the Empire's fleet into a deadly trap. As the battle began, the Empire's massive ships charged in, confident in their ability to overwhelm any remaining human forces. But as they did, they found themselves caught in a series of unexpected maneuvers. Human ships, hidden within the debris fields and using the station's blind spots to their advantage, launched coordinated strikes. The Empire's fleet, unprepared for such a relentless assault, was thrown into disarray. Explosions rocked the space station as human ships disabled key systems and targeted weak points in the Empire's flagship. The humans fought with everything they had, not for survival alone, but for the chance to finally deliver a blow to the Empire's arrogance. In the midst of the chaos, Admiral Kane led a daring assault on the heart of the Empire's flagship, an enormous vessel that had been considered invincible. As the humans closed in, the flagship's shield generators began to fail under the relentless barrage. In a final, desperate push, the humans deployed an experimental weapon, a devastating EMP charge, directly into the flagship's core. The blast was catastrophic, sending shockwaves through the flagship's systems and plunging it into darkness. The once mighty vessel was rendered useless, its power grid failing, its weapon systems offline. The humans had done the impossible. The Empire's flagship, the symbol of their overwhelming dominance, was destroyed. The ripple of fear that spread through the Empire was instantaneous. Their confidence shattered, their fleet in disarray. The Empire realized that the human spirit, unbroken and relentless, could never be truly defeated. This victory, small yet monumental, marked a turning point in the war. The humans were not just surviving, they were fighting back with a fury that the Empire had never expected. And as the battle raged on, it became clear the Emperor's wrath had ignited a fire that he might never be able to put out. As the tide of war began to turn in humanity's favor, the Empire started to feel the weight of its overconfidence. The relentless attacks of the second wave were taking their toll, and the morale of the Imperial forces was crumbling. It was then that something unexpected happened. A new, mysterious ally appeared. Word spread through the galaxy of a coalition of alien races, once loyal to the Empire, but now disillusioned by years of exploitation and oppression. These species had suffered under the Empire's cruel rule, their resources stripped away, their cultures crushed, and their people enslaved or wiped out. But now, in the shadows, they had begun to secretly reach out to humanity. They saw in the second wave a chance for freedom, a chance to overthrow the Empire's iron grip on the galaxy. The alliance formed quickly, though cautiously. The aliens, scarred by years of subjugation, were not easily trusting, and humanity's position was fragile. The second wave had never faced an enemy as vast as the Empire, and the addition of these alien allies could provide the edge they so desperately needed. Under the leadership of Admiral Kane, humanity and its new allies began to plan their next steps with a new sense of purpose. Together, they would launch an all-out assault on the Empire's supply lines, weaken its control over key systems, and strike at the heart of its military might. The combined forces of humanity and these oppressed races had the potential to shift the balance of power permanently. Hope surged through the ranks. For the first time since the war began, the Empire seemed vulnerable. But just as the alliance began to take shape and trust started to build between the human resistance and the alien factions, a shadowy threat from within their own ranks emerged. It was a betrayal that no one could have foreseen. A high-ranking officer within the human fleet, someone trusted by Kane and regarded as a loyal leader, was revealed to be a double agent, secretly working for the Empire. This officer had been feeding vital information to the Empire, undermining the humans' efforts at every turn. Their sabotage went unnoticed for far too long. The officer manipulated strategies, misdirected forces, and even sabotaged communication channels. When the humans and their new alien allies launched a critical attack on one of the Empire's strategic bases, they walked straight into a trap. The result was disastrous. The combined forces of humanity and their alien allies were caught off guard. The Empire's forces, prepared and waiting, struck with overwhelming force. The battle was fierce, but the humans, now outmaneuvered and betrayed, were left in disarray. The Empire's response was swift and brutal, and the alliance crumbled. Under the weight of the surprise attack, thousands of lives were lost, including some of humanity's finest soldiers and most trusted allies. The surviving humans, along with the alien factions, barely managed to escape, retreating into the depths of space to lick their wounds. In the aftermath of the defeat, Admiral Kane stood on the bridge of his flagship, staring out into the endless void. The loss was a heavy blow, not just to their forces, but to their morale. The betrayal had cut deeper than any battle wound. For a moment, it seemed like everything had been undone. The second wave had gained so much ground, only to have it all slip away in an instant. The trust they had worked so hard to build with, Their alien allies had been shattered, and the Empire, emboldened by this victory, would soon press its advantage. But Kane knew that this war was far from over. The humans had faced worse and survived. They had faced impossible odds before and still stood tall. They would not be defeated so easily. The Empire's victory was temporary, and the betrayal, while painful, had only made them stronger. The surviving humans would regroup. They would rebuild, just as they had done before. And they would find a way to uncover the true traitor in their midst. Whoever had betrayed them would not go unpunished. The fight for the future of the galaxy was far from finished. The second wave had been tested, but it would rise again, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. The galaxy hadn't seen the last of humanity's fight. The betrayal, though crushing, had only fueled their determination to finish what they had started. In the wake of the devastating defeat, when hope seemed to be slipping through humanity's fingers, a new and unexpected leader emerged from the chaos, Captain Alara Drake. She was not the typical leader people had imagined, not some distant figure of power, but a woman forged in the crucible of loss and war. Alara's family had been slaughtered by the Empire during the final stages of the last great battle, her home reduced to ashes in the wake of their tyranny. The grief of her loss was deep, but it was the spark that ignited her determination. Her rage and sorrow had transformed her into something more than just a survivor. She had become a symbol of defiance, a living testament to the resilience of humanity. Her strategic brilliance on the battlefield had made her a legend among the surviving forces, and her leadership, though still young, had already begun to inspire hope in the hearts of those who had almost given up. Alara's rise was nothing short of meteoric. Where others had faltered under the weight of betrayal and loss, she stood tall, a beacon of clarity and purpose. She understood the stakes of this war better than anyone. The Empire was ruthless, and without action, humanity would be wiped out. But she also knew that the human spirit could not be crushed. With cold precision, Alara rallied the fragmented remnants of humanity's resistance, welding them together with the fire of her leadership. Under her command, they forged new alliances with the alien factions, those same oppressed species that had once silently supported humanity's struggle. The remnants of these races, broken but still fighting for their freedom, now stood side by side with the humans. It was through these alliances that Alara discovered something that had long been hidden from the Empire's eyes: a weakness. The Empire's most formidable stronghold, a massive space fortress that had been built to deter any hope of rebellion, held a fatal vulnerability. For all its size, its power, and its nearly impenetrable defenses, there was a flaw in its design, an overlooked blind spot in its massive weapon systems. This space fortress, the crown jewel of the Emperor's military might, was the key to his rule. If it could be crippled or destroyed, the Empire would lose its unshakable grip on the galaxy. Alara's tactical genius had uncovered this flaw, and she knew that if humanity was to have any hope of survival, this fortress had to fall. But the path to victory would not be easy. The fortress was surrounded by the full might of the Empire's fleet, and its defenses were far stronger than anything the humans had faced before. Alara knew that any attempt to attack would be a suicide mission unless they acted quickly, decisively, and with everything they had. The stakes were higher than ever. If they failed, humanity's resistance would be crushed, and the rebellion would be snuffed out. But Alara, fearless and resolute, refused to accept defeat. With a firm voice and an iron will, she laid out her plan to the leaders of the allied alien factions. She would lead the charge, an all-or-nothing assault that would strike at the heart of the Empire's power. The plan was daring, almost reckless, but Alara's conviction was unshakable. She would rally the galaxy's oppressed races, those who had suffered under the Empire's iron grip, for this one final stand. The response to her call was overwhelming. Across the galaxy, alien ships rallied to her side. The once downtrodden species that had long suffered under the Empire's tyranny now found themselves united in a common cause with humanity. Together, they would fight not just for their survival, but for their freedom. As Ilara led the charge, humanity's forces and their alien allies formed a massive fleet, moving swiftly toward the Empire's fortress. The battle that awaited them would be like no other. It was a gamble, but Ilara had always believed that humanity's greatest strength lay not in overwhelming force, but in their ability to surprise, to adapt, and to fight with heart. As the fleet approached the fortress, the tension was palpable. Every ship in the Coalition's armada knew the risks. They were up against the might of the Empire's most powerful stronghold, yet Ilara's presence inspired them to believe in the impossible. The attack began with a fury unlike anything the Empire had witnessed. For hours, the battle raged, each side unleashing everything they had. It was chaos. But through it all, Captain Ilara Drake's brilliance and determination shone. Against all odds, the human resistance had found its spark again, and this time it was unstoppable. The Empire's fortress was no longer an impenetrable wall. It was vulnerable. And with Ilara leading them, humanity and its allies would strike the final blow, hoping that this assault could truly be the beginning of the end for the Emperor's reign. The final battle, the one that would decide the fate of the galaxy, unfolded with an intensity that shook the very fabric of space itself. The galaxy had never witnessed anything like this before. Humanity's second wave, now a force to be reckoned with, had united with their alien allies to strike at the Empire's heart. The battle was a furious mix of brutal force, unpredictable tactics, and mind-bending ingenuity. Ilara Drake led the charge, a commander whose strategic genius was matched only by her unwavering resolve. Every move the humans made was a calculated risk, each strike designed to throw the Empire off balance. The battle was chaos, but it was the kind of chaos that humanity thrived in. The humans used their knowledge of the Empire's systems, their unpredictable tactics, and their deep-rooted belief in the power of unity to keep the Empire's fleets on the defensive. They fought with the strength of the oppressed and the desperation of the last hope. The Empire, confident in its overwhelming might, had not anticipated this. Their fleets were vast, their ships powerful, but they were not ready for the human spirit. Every countermeasure the Empire deployed was met with an answer they hadn't expected. The humans fought not by brute strength alone, but with their hearts. As Earth's forces and their alien allies battled across the stars, the Empire's command structure began to falter. Their ships were thrown into disarray, their tactics rendered useless by the unpredictability of the human assault. For every blow the Empire struck, the humans delivered two, their resistance relentless and unyielding. The tide of battle began to shift, and it was clear that the Empire's reign was on the brink of collapse. As the final confrontation approached, it became evident that the fate of the galaxy would come down to one last, decisive clash. Captain Ilara Drake, leading her forces, found herself face-to-face with the Emperor himself. The battle between the two was not just a fight of weapons, but of ideals. The Emperor, cold and ruthless, stood as the embodiment of tyranny, while Ilara was the living symbol of humanity's resilience. The two locked eyes as they prepared to fight not just for their own survival, but for the future of the galaxy. The battle was fierce, each strike echoing the clash of civilizations. The Emperor unleashed his full might, but Ilara was ready. She fought not for herself, but for the billions who had been oppressed by the Empire, for the countless lives that had been lost in the struggle for freedom. At the height of the battle, as the Emperor's forces pushed forward with everything humanity's forces received an unexpected breakthrough. A technological advance, something thought to be impossible, had been developed in secret by the humans and their allies. A new weapon, more powerful than anything the Empire was deployed in the heat of the conflict. It was a weapon that could disrupt the very heart of the Empire's command structure, severing the communication and coordination between their fleets. With a single strike, the Empire's cohesion shattered. The once unbeatable war machine faltered, and chaos spread like wildfire through their ranks. The Emperor, no longer able to coordinate his forces, found himself facing defeat on all sides. In the final moments of the battle, the human forces surged forward with a renewed sense of purpose. The Empire's power was crumbling, and humanity's victory seemed within reach. The Emperor's once mighty fleet was in disarray, their ships scattered, their commanders lost. Captain Alara Drake, with the support of her allies, struck the final blow. The Empire, which had once believed itself invincible, was finally brought to its knees. The victory was not just a military triumph, but a testament to the strength of the human spirit. Against all odds, humanity had emerged victorious. The galaxy had been forever changed. Earth's second wave, once thought lost, had risen from the ashes and delivered a blow that would echo through history. The Empire was no more, its reign of terror ended. As the dust settled, Ilara stood among her people, not as a conqueror, but as a symbol of hope. Humanity had proved that no matter how dark the times, the will to survive and to fight for a better future could overcome even the most insurmountable of odds. The new era had begun, a new era built on unity, resilience, and the unyielding power of the human will to never give up. The galaxy, now free from the Empire's tyranny, could finally look to a future shaped by its own hands, and humanity stood at the forefront of that future.